Hello and welcome to this week's Statistics 1 course. This week we're going to shift gears a little bit, and instead of working with sets of data where there is only one variable or one specific topic, we're going to shift to what do you do if you have two different variables. But before we move on and I go over what this week's work is on, I want to point out that I posted a screencast here, and it's about 15 minutes long, so I apologize if it feels long. However, I think it wouldn't be a bad idea to, if you haven't already, to take a look at it as I attempt to pull together all the topics that we covered in chapters 2 through 5 to show you how they relate together and how all of them are in play in specific problems that we've been working on lately. So if you haven't begun the work here this week, and you feel a little unsure of yourself as far as what we've been doing so far, it might be a wise investment of 15 minutes to take a look at this video. And after which, though, we're going to shift gears towards what are called correlation and regression. And this is a topic that actually may be, for some of us, depending on what you do in your workplace, might be an area that you're more comfortable with than some of the things we've just recently done. And the area of focuses on what happens if you have two sets of variables for specific points. So for example, in this little screenshot I have here on Blackboard for this week, you can see that I have a scatter plot that compares for individuals their ninth grade test scores on a state test to their SAT scores. And how this reads is, say, for example, I take this bullet here, this point. This point represents one individual, and it represents the two different variables or two different test scores for that one individual. So this individual, for example, looks like they have a ninth grade test score a little bit above 650, and they had an SAT score in math a little bit above 300, and so on. So each one of these points is an individual student and represents the two data points or the two variables for each of them. And what we want to take a look at this week are two things. Number one, how strong is the correlation or relationship between these sets of data? How good of a predictor is the ninth grade test score for a student's eventual SAT test score? And how tight these data points are to a certain trend line, the more sure of yourself you may be in making predictions based on these test scores. So the correlation or correlation coefficient is a statistic that is going to give you a measure of how strong the correlation or relationship is between the two sets of data. So read the text carefully on chapter 6 and take a look at some of the videos I have further on down to help. The other part is what's called regression, which is the act of coming up with a mathematical model to help with those predictions. So sometimes in classes, I would maybe put this on an overhead projector, a screen like this, and I would get a piece of hard spaghetti, and I would lay it right on top of it and see where, for example, does it seem to make sense to lay that spaghetti to be a line that is going to be a predictor line for us. This set of data here, for example, it wouldn't make sense to have the predicting line to go this way. It wouldn't make sense to have it coming down, all right? It would be an increasing line, and I would probably situate it so that it kind of goes right down the middle of them so that I can use that line as a predictor. But in regression, there is the identification of finding that line and also the equation or the function for that line. And that equation would end up being a formula for us so that we don't have to just eyeball it and make a guesstimate, but we can actually plug the point in here into the formula and it'll kick back to us a predictor for the SAT scores. So it would be used, for example, if I said, all right, if I randomly selected a student and they scored an 800 on this ninth grade state test, I can either eyeball it and guesstimate that it would be around maybe 650, looking at it around here, or more accurately, I can plug it into what's called a regression line or a regression equation, and it'll kick back a value for us that is more specific and a better estimate for their SAT score than me eyeballing it. So those are the two main things. Again, correlation and regression. They do go hand in hand. So I apologize if it seems from the onset that we have two chapters, but they actually do make sense together. And the text prompts this week, there are 5 of them, 2 of them from the first chapter 6 and 3 of them from chapter 7. You may, as it reads here, you can do these by hand. You may use a calculator if you understand how to use that, or you can use Excel. Excel will walk this through you for you. And what I have down here are videos. One, how to go about doing it by hand, step by step. And then 2 other videos on how to use Excel. One to find that correlation coefficient, and one to actually find that equation that we will use as a predictor. So after you complete those 5 problems, I also ask that you demonstrate your ability to use Excel to find the correlation and regression. It's going to be using the same Excel file that we used earlier in the course so far. And I'm hoping that you can use these videos down here or any other artifacts that you can use to walk you through how to use Excel to kick back the information on this. So 2 main items again, the text prompts, there's 5 prompts, and this Excel activity. It's the same set of data or the same file that we were using, but in this case here, we're using that SAT tab. And you can open up this link and it walks you through what's being asked of you. And you can open up this link and it'll bring you right back to that same Excel file that you've been using throughout the course. If you have any questions, feel free to email me. Also, feel free to post any questions on Slack so that we can get a community of people answering each other. And if it seems that I might put out a little survey to see if it seems that it would be wise to have a Google Hangout possibly this weekend at some point so we can all catch up, make sure we're on the same page. So good luck for this week. Great work so far throughout the course, and hope to talk to you soon.